Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Campbell River Mayoral Debate for 2022. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder. I'm the Executive Director of the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce, co-host with the Campbell River Mayor and the Tidemark Theatre Society. We welcome you to tonight's debate. We honor our relationship with the Lakwata people, Wewakam and Wewakai, as well as all other First Nations, Métis and Inuit people who reside in Campbell River and the Lakwata territories. We will begin shortly with the introductions. Good evening, candidates. On my far left is candidate Calhoun. Beside him, candidate Cornfield, candidate Dahl in the middle, candidate Deborah Selassie, beside candidate Sampson. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and thank you for the courage and letting your names stand in our democracy. We are going to begin with the opening statements of 90 seconds each. Candidate Calhoun, you will begin.
Good evening to the good citizens of the great town of Campbell River. I'd like to thank you and future mayor and councillors for your civic pride and interest. The World Bank president announced today we might be in for a global recession next year. So in all haste, we have to get our house in order. The issues bearing down on us are homelessness, affordable rental and housing, drugs, crime, and inappropriate civil behavior, and mental health. The lessening of our key industries of fishing, mining, and forestry have to be addressed. Taxes, waste, and red tape has hampered development and increases the cost of ownership. Finally, tourism, arts, and culture are our challenges. Let us take all the ideas and input from all the candidates to develop workable solutions. Elect not your pre-choice candidates slate, but the ones that have life experience in key issues, the understanding of these, and new creative ideas to solve them. Worry is always a misuse of imagination. We must look beyond the possible to solve the possible. I want to encourage the spirit debate to solve these problems. I am a great believer of luck. The harder you work, the more luck you have. My late mother said in her wisdom,
Thank you, candidate Calhoun.
Sometimes you ask a man to say something, then you ask a woman to solve it.
Thank you, candidate Calhoun.
If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So let the show begin, and let us all be players in this challenge for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidate Calhoun. Candidate Cornfield, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. And the first item that I want to talk about is acknowledging that I am on the territory of the Lakota-speaking people, and I want to thank them, the organizers, and thank you in the audience for coming out tonight. My name is Councillor Cornfield, but I prefer just Charlie. I'm a widower, 2 grown children, Kim in London, England, and Matt, my special needs son in Campbell River. I'm engaged to my new love, Patty, and our 3 other grown children, Rachel, Brandon, and Garrett. I've been on City Council for 20 years. I was first elected in 1996, served 5 terms as a councillor and 1 term as your mayor. I am proud to have served the people of Campbell River and in the many accomplishments as our city grows. I've been encouraged to run for mayor again by family, friends, and supporters from all walks of life. I believe very strongly that the mayor and council are elected to represent all the people in the city. We are there to deliver your vision of the city. I want to be your mayor again. I have the time, passion, energy, experience, skills, knowledge, relationships, and integrity to bring the community together to work for a better future for all of us. I need you to help me help you to keep our city the best it can be. On October 15th, please vote for Charlie Cornfield for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Campbell. And candidate Dahl.
I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I'd like to start off by thanking my wife and my family for allowing me to put my name forward. I believe Campbell River is at a crossroads. We will need strong leadership from our mayor and council to navigate the issues facing the city. Our homeless and lawlessness in our downtown core, housing attainability and availability, and the never-ending appetite to raise taxes are three key areas the next council will need to deal with. This election to me is not a race or a competition. I am simply an option, a different way of doing business, a fiscally responsible option. Thank you. I'm Kermit Dahl. I'd like to be your mayor.
Thank you, candidate Dahl. Candidate Geber Selassie.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Saran. I am a trial lawyer, a prosecutor, and a business owner. I am originally from Ontario, and making Willow Point my home has been the best decision I've ever made. And I am absolutely in love with Canada's most enchanting city. I have been told by a number of you on the campaign trail over the past 6 months that you're contemplating folding up the tents and leaving Canada permanently for a variety of reasons, ranging from extreme inflation to unaffordability and a whole host of other reasons. I am running because I want you, and I'm asking you to stay here and work with us to make life more affordable here in Campbell River. I have a lot of skills I bring to the table. I am prepared to bring $20 million into this region if elected. I've done it before in Ontario, where I led negotiations with the province, the Premier's team, and I've also had negotiations with the Prime Minister's office in my sort of lengthy career in Ontario. I'm so grateful to be here, and most of the best thing about this city is its people. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Gabrielesi. And candidate Sampson.
Thank you and welcome. Good evening. My name is Larry Sampson, and I am running to be mayor in the upcoming municipal election. As many of you know, I've spent my career, and born and raised in Campbell River, and my career was spent serving the residents of this community, both in the fire department and 7 years on council. When I decided not to run for re-election in 2018, the city was on a bright path. We had seen new developments such as the Seymour Pacific, Broad Street properties, the Berwick Retirement Center. We saw the artificial turf field at Robron. We had a state-of-the-art water treatment center where we no longer had to depend on BC Hydro for our water. We had the upgrade of Highway 19, and our lovable Seawalk was all approved and ready to go. In the last 4 years, much has changed. We're seeing homelessness and unacceptable behavior in our downtown and at our parks. Nuns Creek Park was closed to minor baseball. To balance our budget this year, money was taken out of the reserves. Next year, we may be facing a 6 to 9% tax increase. We have also heard a lack of respect with councillors between staff and each other. This isn't the community I have known. I want to make a difference. As your mayor, I will listen to you, the residents, because this is your city. Although sometimes we will not agree, I will treat you with respect and respect your opinion. And in closing, I'd just like to thank my family for their support, especially my grandchildren.
Thank you. And now we'll begin with the questions. And the first question will begin with candidate Cornfield. All one has to do is watch the news to see the unsettling growth of divisive politics. How would you describe your approach to being a politician?
Thank you for the question, Mary Ruth. Here's my take on it. I don't believe that there's any room for politics at local government level. That's always been my philosophy. I think we are elected to do the best that we can for the city, regardless of which political party there is in power. We have to work with them regardless. And so I don't see this as politics. This is about doing the right thing at the right time for our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay. All one has to do is watch the news to see the unsettling growth of divisive politics. How would you describe your approach to being a politician?
Well, I ain't no politician, and I ain't trying to become one. So we'll get that straight right up front. I'm a mechanic, and I come here to help my community. That's it. I don't play politics. I believe that we need to work with staff and work as one. Everybody pulling on one rope in the same direction. And that's not what I've seen on council for the last 4 years. I've seen people pulling in all kinds of directions and nobody coming together to pull in one direction. And that's why I said or put my name forward that I would run for council, because there was a good group of people that had put their name forward to run for council. So I thought I'd run for mayor. And we'll have a council and a team on staff that are all headed in the right direction. We're going to work with First Nations. I've been speaking with the band of Wewakam and Wewakai, and we have an intention to work together strongly. Campbell River can't imagine its potential if all three come together, and they haven't in the past.
Thank you. And candidate Gabriela Sassi, how will you approach being a politician?
Well, the last 2 years have been very divisive. So the divisive politics we're seeing, I believe, is a result of divisive policies. And I am a consensus builder. I have an illustrious track record of mediating some very hostile disputes. I have experience, generating resolutions and settlements in scenarios where many would have said it's impossible. I have generated a moratorium in Ontario through negotiating with the province of Ontario in a very, very hostile dispute between the province and thousands of civil servants. So I would be relying on two things. One, my vision to usher in a new era in our community that leaves the divisive politics in the past. I would also be relying heavily on my experience as a trained and skilled negotiator, as well as a trained mediator.
Thank you. And candidate Sampson.
Thank you. I find myself that I'm a collaborator. I like to bring people together. With the council, I would like to see a strong diversity upon council, so I can bring their passions, what they believe in, and bring them together. My past history as a fire chief, working with 80 staff members, my different roles that I played in the city on the council, chairing the North Island 911 board, and doing other different functions. President, even things like president of minor hockey, where I've had to bring different associations together, different people together to look at different ways of doing things. I find myself that I can work with people, I can bring people together, we will find a common goal. We may not always agree, but we will work together. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Calhoun, would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
I believe the people of Campbell River aren't divisive. I believe in listening to the people and solving the issues. Do not make issues of them. Division is made by politicians and media serving their own cause, not by the hardworking, God bless people and families. Division comes from people, not from sources. And there's narrow minds create wider problems. So look at things outside the box. Look at issues. Look at your faults. Look at why you don't like something. Maybe the reason it's wrong is because of your beliefs. Open your beliefs and mind to everyone, and we will work together to make this town great like it was in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to the audience, I know that you are wanting to show your appreciation after every answer, but in light of the short time we're going to have this evening, maybe hold your applause until the very end, unless you really feel passionate about something, because we really want the candidates to be able to use all the time. So thank you for your enthusiasm. And starting with candidate Dahl, the next question is, how will reconciliation and decolonization inform your approach in working with our Indigenous communities?
Well, like I said, we're going to have a very close relationship with both the Waywakai and Waywakam. I've been meeting with Chief Roberts and Chief Shakite, and we intend very early after the election to get all three councils together and start building a relationship for the city of Campbell River's betterment. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. And candidate Geber Selassie?
So it has been said that the best predictor of how a candidate will govern is how a candidate runs his or her campaign. My campaign is actually put a call out to translate our platform into our First Nations languages, and I've had the privilege of working with leaders in both communities, as well as the Hamilka Nation, the Cree Nation, Métis Nations, sort of different leaders within a variety of communities, and getting that expertise in the campaign. I spent a lot of time throughout the campaign trail learning as much as I could about various teachings, including the 7 grandfather teachings, to see how I can integrate this incredible source of intelligence into the campaign, into how I do business. And it is truly an asset, not only on the campaign trail, but it's absolutely essential, and it has really helped me thrive on the campaign trail. And so I certainly look forward to having the opportunity to continue that work.
Thank you. Candidate Sampson.
And I'll get you to repeat the question, please.
Okay. How will reconciliation and decolonization inform your approach in working with our Indigenous communities?
I think the first thing we have to do is recognize, I'll say, the injustice that was done with the residential schools and the past history. One can only imagine the horror when your children are taken away from you into these residential schools as you move forward in life. Once we do this, we then have a chance to build a relationship with our First Nation neighbors. I think as we go forward, we have to recognize that they have their needs for the people that live on the Waywakai and the Waywakam, and we want to be the best neighbors possible. We recognize that we may have difference of opinions, but we will overcome them by working together. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Calhoun?
Decolonization. It's life we know it. The old way was not the glory that it was fantasized to be. Injustice. The Irish had injustice too. I had the strap in school, but that was the past. We should all join together as one group. To simulate one group against another is right back into the situation of isolating and dividing. These people are right, these people are wrong. Everyone has valid points, but let's unite everybody together and cut the stuff about this guy did that guy did that. Let's work together and make this community a great community, and let the big issues like that be media and politicians. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Cornfield?
Thank you, Mary Ruth. How will reconciliation and decolonizing inform my approach? Well, my approach has always been one of understanding and compassion, mutual respect, and learning from the people of First Nations. For 6 years, I chaired the First Nations Relations Committee at the Regional District. I've worked with most bands throughout our entire area here. I have been presented with many items for helping the bands to achieve their goals. It comes from that knowledge and sitting down and doing a lot of listening. And it's relationships that are built up over the years. When I used to meet with the elders here in Campbell River, I asked them what their vision was for our community. And what they said was a simple word: seamless. And that's what I believe in. It should be seamless. It's not them and us. It's about all of us together and how we move forward in the future. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. The next question goes to candidate Geber Selassie. You may remember how impacted the island was during last winter's floods and the horrendous effect it had on our supply chain. And now we are faced with astronomical inflation. What ideas do you have to address food insecurity in our community?
So I opened my statement today saying I'm running because I was informed by a number of my colleagues and a number of constituents just how extreme this inflation situation is for them and how extreme this is impacting everyone, to the point where a number of community members ask if they can even live here anymore at all and are looking to leave the country, which speaks to just how extreme of a situation it is. So I do have some solid ideas in terms of how we can move forward. One of those is we need to, as I said, usher in a new era. It's going to be really important that we thrive, and I want to see more of our businesses succeeding. I would like to see a really good comeback of the tourism and hospitality sector. I would be able to increase our numbers in the tourism sector. I would also have use my influence and my networks to bring attention to Campbell River. I know how to get this city in the New York Times, in the BBC, in other major media outlets. I know how to do those, take those steps so that we can attract a new industry here. I have already invited very talented people in the business sector and philanthropic sectors to tour Campbell River, and my time's up.
Thank you. And candidate Sampson, would you like me to repeat the question, or?
Sure.
Okay. You may remember how impacted the island was during last winter's floods and the horrendous effect it had on our supply chains. And now we are faced with astronomical inflation. What ideas do you have to address food insecurity in our area?
Okay, as a city, there are a number of steps that we can take, and all you have to do is look at the farmers market on Sunday and see the produce and the farmers coming forward. We can encourage that. The city can offer incentives so that we have more of the agricultural component within our city. The city can also collaborate with the other mayors up and down the island, get together and brainstorm and come up with different ideas for food security. We can look at different ways of, for instance, our elementary schools. We have 14 elementary schools, 14 schools. Is there a way that we can have neighborhood gardens at these schools so that we start promoting food growth and start educating our children and also becoming part of the neighborhood? So we see different parts of our city that I think are very well suited for growth of our food. So I think the big thing would be is to encourage the incentives, and that may be through tax incentives, it may be through different other ways to encourage them to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Calhoun.
Well, first thing off, why don't we plant trees that bear fruit rather than fake cherries? The other thing, especially the Peterson Road area thing, the increased taxes are so high that people are forced to sell their property. Any property that is worked, has farm, now should have reduced taxes and should have those taxes reduced until it's used for other purposes. And if they do not want that property to be one day a condo development, give it to them forever. Have our food grown here on the farmland that we have. And also, like they said, encourage farmers markets for outlining areas. Teach the children how to grow. Community gardens, and make sure that that anything that we can grow here and buy it and use it rather than importing it from other sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cornfield.
Thank you. Food insecurity, I'll shorten the question down to food insecurity in Campbell River. So we have a city's agricultural plan. We prepared it. It was done when I was mayor. It was also signed off by the Minister of Agriculture. There is only 3 days food supply on Vancouver Island.
Correct.
And that is very disconcerting. So that's why we designed the plan. It was to develop strategies to encourage agricultural production in our city. It's small scale, niche marketing. One of the things that has occurred is, and people might have read about it in the news, is the new vertical gardens out at the old mill, where they're bringing new technologies in. We've done our part with community gardens. The difficulty is it is expensive to get into it. The land costs, if you're competing with housing, makes the land unaffordable. Then that means you need to shift to things like greenhouses and other forms. So we have a plan, we have strategies. It's a matter of how do we get around to implementing them. So that's one thing that we have to get more serious about and start to plan for land that's made available to promote agriculture.
Thank you. And candidate Dahl.
Well, I know that we have the sustainable food study that was done, and I know that we have lots of rich ALR land around the city that could be used, and tax incentives could encourage people to use that land. Like Councillor Cornfield said, he was the mayor when they did all that. But that study's been sitting on a shelf for years, and probably nobody's seen it in close to a decade. I think the first thing that we could do is push back against any more tax increases. We can develop housing to drive housing prices down so that people can afford to buy groceries after they've made their mortgage payment. I heard this morning that there was a 10.4% increase in groceries in the cost of groceries last month with a 7% inflation rate. And we just heard Larry speaking about a 6 to 10% or 9% tax increase, but city staff have been talking about a 10 to 12% tax increase. So if we're raising taxes, we're making it a lot harder to buy groceries. You're going to have to choose between whether you want to pay your rent, your mortgage payment, or buy groceries, because that's what happens. When the taxes go up, your rent goes up, or your mortgage goes up, your payment, not the mortgage itself, but the payment you have to make every month. So we need to find other ways to generate revenue.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with candidate Sampson. Competition for potential employees right now is fierce. For many professionals, salary amounts alone are no longer the single motivating factor for staying in a job. Given the number of vacancies at City Hall and the number of professionals who have left recently, how will you create a culture at City Hall where staff feel valued, inspired, and motivated to stay so the city can retain and recruit outstanding professionals?
That's a mouthful. I think it starts at the top. You have to you start at the top. I know when I first got on council back in 2011, we had, I believe, a turnover of 19 staff members in the finance department. We had people that were quitting before they even started their first day of work. So when we got on council, we made a concerted effort that we were going to treat each other with respect and also the staff with respect. And then the culture slowly started to filter down. We worked with the city manager, we worked with each other, we attended workshops, we met with other councils at the UBCM or the ABICC, and we slowly changed the behavior in the council and met with staff. So I think to change the behavior, we start at the top, we work down, but you have to show the respect and value the opinion and look at the different opinions with respect. As we go forward, if I was elected mayor, that's one of the communities I know, I think it was Squamish, they adopted a code of conduct. And that code of conduct came with penalties and it was adhered to for council because they were having their problems. And that might be one of the ways that we look at to ensure that staff gets the respect that they deserve, but also each council member gets the respect that they deserve. That's one of the things I would look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Calhoun.
Well, number one, this is Camelot. We should be seeking recruits from other areas. You know, if they knew how great this area was and what we had to offer, a lot of people would leave other places. They already found us because of COVID. We got to have a better appreciation and working relationship with the frontline workers. Management sometimes dictates, but doesn't listen. If you listen to your people and have a team effort towards solving the problems rather than worker and boss or manager, you have a good working relationship. I have talked to a lot of the city employees, and a lot of them are very, very fine people. Some of them, I wouldn't recommend for them to stay working because of their attitude. And they're not the people that I want. I want respectful, polite, and caring people for our community. Not, you do that, or we'll find you this. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cornfield.
Thank you for the question. It's a difficult one to answer. When you look at where our turnover is and those professionals that are there, it has a lot to do with the workload. And it's a pressure cooker trying to get enough people to be able to do the job. We have asked way too much of far too few. And they leave. They're leaving for a variety of reasons. They also come here for a variety of reasons. We're limited in what we can do in terms of salaries. That's only one aspect. There's other things that we need to do, but to me, the key is to match the workload to the staff complement. And that in itself makes the objectives and goals attainable and achievable. And most people that we have in the city want to be here and want to work for the city. It is a good place to work, and it's a matter of how do we keep it a good place to work, and that comes back to council making sure that what we are asking of them is realistic and attainable. Otherwise, we're just burning them out and we lose them.
Okay, thank you. And Candidate Dahl.
I am still a counselor. I'm also an employer, so I understand the value of employees and employee turnover. If you have a culture where everyone is happy, like candidate Calhoun said, we're in Camelot. We'll have no problem attracting staff. We just did a cultural review. It was scathing. You should get a copy of it and read it, understand it. When that is changed, because of where we live and our lifestyles here, we could attract people from big cities, Vancouver, White Rock, Langford, wherever you want to pick a big city, and they would come here. But as long as we have staff leaving and going to other communities and telling them what a toxic environment they worked in Campbell River, you can't attract new staff, not top quality ones. We need the culture to change. We need to work together. We need to pull on one rope. We shouldn't be working in silos. That's a word that I didn't even realize was used on the coast. I left Alberta in 1985. We used to talk about silos. But never in 37 years did I talk about silos. That's it.
Okay. And candidate Gebrselassie.
I have a lot of experience as a trial lawyer dealing with employment disputes, and a lot of those lawsuits would have never seen a courtroom if there were just some of the smallest changes that were made by employers. So for instance, it's just incredible how some of the employees I represented said, if I was just, celebrated, if I just had the thank you party at the end of the year, my colleague got celebrated, but I didn't. It's just incredible how much that meant to those employees and how costly that was for the employer, and how that, you would never think that such litigation and lawsuits would drag on for years, and how, I would never imagine that something so seemingly small played such a big role in the workplace environment. So my proposal is twofold. One, I would implement a robust alternative dispute resolution mechanism within the workplace that would be informed, that would use critical therapeutic intervention techniques as part of that. And secondly, I think my example as a professional, having made Willow Point home, should say a lot about how we can attract external talent.
Thank you. And the next question will start with candidate Calhoun. I'd like to share a current situation that came to us through the email. An individual on disability who can only afford $350 a month towards rent lives in a mobile home park across from the Ken Ford boat launch with her sister, who is 68 and retiring in December. They are being evicted January 31st due to an impending apartment development, and at the moment have nowhere to go due to no available affordable housing. BC Housing has told them it is more than a 5-year wait for subsidized housing. Over the last 2 decades, countless municipalities through North America have gathered evidence that clearly demonstrates that preventing homelessness is way more cost-effective than addressing homelessness after housing is lost. What would you do to encourage a more diversified and affordable housing supply, such as requiring a certain percentage of new units in any building be subsidized and affordable.
Okay, first off, I'm familiar with the trailer park. All the trailer parks are being shut down. What we have to do, because trailer parks are still great people. You buy a trailer, but you buy a trailer on land, so it's mortgageable. If we get private investment to build a new mobile home court, or the city to build it, and then people can take their $20,000 mobile home, have it on a piece of property, gain some equity. If they're raising a family, sell it and step up the ladder, or they're happy ever after. Also, people are forced with RVs. There is not, everything's being closed down for RV courts, or you have to be a certain year. Let us open up some more RV spaces, and not only for the locals, but for the tourists to come in to enjoy. So many units in a new building for affordable housing. The prices are already too high, and what we would do is work with what we have on industrial property and make rentals out of those properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cornfield.
This is a really complex issue, isn't it? At least the question was long, but I understand if they're on disability, they were in the trailer park, now they want to build an apartment, and out goes the trailer park, and they're displaced. Well, we need to think outside the box these days. In other words, we've always said it's not the city's responsibility to construct housing. Maybe it's time we looked at that. Maybe it's time we became the developer. Maybe we do it to generate revenue, but keep the profits minimal so that it is affordable to the others. I think we need to start looking at other options, not the usual way, but at the same time, we need to go after BC Housing to construct more housing. And we need to free up land and create the zoning that's necessary for it. We have done some of this. 850 Dogwood has a component of affordable housing. Unfortunately, when you look at the BC stats for what is affordable, it's way beyond what this rent is. So I think we need to start looking at things that we can do ourselves.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl.
Yeah, 850 Dogwood. I think low income for that building they consider to be about $120,000 a year. So that's probably not people that are paying $350 a month rent. The city has a really good relationship with BC Housing, and although this won't help those folks at all, we should be using that to our advantage. The city still owns some land that could be used for senior housing or, vulnerable population, people in wheelchairs and needing some type of support. So that's one option. The other thing is that all new subdivisions in Campbell River, when they're developed, are zoned for R1As, which are secondary suites. And if there was an abundance of them, the rents would start to go down. Right now, I know that in Park Forest, where my son lives, renting a secondary suite there right now is between $1,400 and $1,700 a month. And that was supposed to be affordable housing 5 years ago. So this is a really complex situation. But without any lots available, it's impossible to get any housing to be built. It's impossible to get multifamily residential built. It's impossible to get apartments that aren't sitting on the ocean where you've got million-dollar views built. So the city needs to open up the land, make it available to the developers. You know, profits, not a bad word, and the developers are who's going to get us out of this problem. The city isn't, the province isn't, the feds are not. Developers are who's going to get us out of trouble.
And candidate Geber Selassie.
The planning and development system isn't very well understood by the community, is what I've learned on the campaign trail. And so I would like to see the planning and development systems not be just housed in City Hall, but be showcased in the public so that it can be made more tangible, and so that all land use and ownership is made visible to the community, and starts opening this up more. So, so that community members, echoing what my worthy opponents have talked about, that it's opened up, so it's not concentrated in the hands of a few, but, at this point, we all need to understand the ins and outs of development, and, families can start being developers. Maybe development can be distributed more broadly. Individual families can have this process made more accessible to them, and apply for permits and start developing units, even small units, cabins, small cottages, smaller sort of scale, single unit housing. I think at this point we really need to get creative and open this process up and have it be more transparent.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
candidate Sampson.
Thank you. I do agree with candidate Dahl on the lack of residential lots. We've seen it extremely too in the last 3 years, the lack of residential lots. And what that's done is driven up the price of these lots. Well, if the lots are going up 25%, 30%, then the multi-residential property is also going to be going up 20 or 30%. So they correlate between each other. There are a few things that we can do as a city. More zoning, easier zoning for R1As to make it easier for if a person needs a mortgage helper, or if it's a young family, that they can rezone the residential to an R1A. We can offer tax incentives for people that want to put in trailer park, subsidized housing. We offer tax incentives for the buildings downtown, Seymour Pacific, Healthy Way Foods, Comfort Inn, and it proved hugely successful. And when we saw the development in our downtown. So that's one of the things that we can do to allow these for subsidized housing is tax incentives. We have to do, I think, and I haven't seen it, needs assessment with BC Housing to see whether it's low-income seniors, whether it's singles, families, where is the housing needs the greatest. The new development downtown is for low-income women. Do we need more of this type of subsidized housing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next question will start with candidate Cornfield. Homelessness impacts our community safety, health, our businesses, visitors, and the city's finite resources. What new ideas and solutions will you bring to City Council? That's part one of the question. And part two, what will be your approach in working with our police, justice system, businesses, and health officials to improve this escalating situation?
Okay, so what new ideas would I bring? Mm-hmm. And the second part of the question?
What would be your approach be working with police, justice system, businesses, and health officials?
So the RCMP, court, and health?
Mm-hmm.
What new ideas? There is no quick fix to the homeless issue in the downtown, none whatsoever. It's going to take the entire community to get behind it, to deal with it with compassion and understanding, and to pull together to provide the types of treatments. The homeless isn't one homogeneous group of people. It's people that are poor, that can't afford anything. It's also people with mental health problems, with drugs and alcohol addiction. Each one of those requires a different form of treatment. We spent last week at Whistler at the UBCM convention doing just that, talking with other communities, finding out what works. We have to do more of that, but we also were lobbying the provincial government to take and do their part. And we have been working with them on a facility in town, a treatment facility, new one. We met with the minister last week. And so definitely to push that one through. In terms of working with the RCMP, the courts and health, that means you're dealing with the federal government as well as the provincial. We also met with them over changes that we wanted to see to the system that would allow us to be able to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl.
Well, as Candidate Cornfield alluded to, this is a very complex situation, and it needs to be broken down much more than what you've done there with two complicated questions in a minute and a half. You've got mental health issues, you have homeless issues, and you have lawless issues, and they need to be dealt with in three different ways. As far as homelessness, when I came on council, there was 108 or 118 people homeless or at risk of being homeless. While I've been on council, the city has seen 60 beds, a 60-room building built at 580 Dogwood, and 25 rooms built at the Rose Bowl. That's 85 rooms. And we've gone from 108 or 118 to 128 while housing 85 people. We need to come to grips with people are coming into town from out of town, and we can't house everybody's homeless. We can take care of, Campbell River is a passionate place, and we can take care of our people, but we can't take care of all the homeless in all of Canada. We have to figure that out. When it comes to the lawless problem, the Waywaka and City Council are going to sit down with the RCMP, bylaw, the Crown Prosecutor, and the Judiciary and find out why their jobs aren't being done. We pay $20-ish million a year for a contract for law enforcement. That's a contract. If you hire anyone to do any contract and they don't fulfill their contract, you have the right to ask why.
Thank you, Candidate Dahl. Candidate Gebrselassie.
I've already worked, had the opportunity to speak to officers of the court here in Campbell River. Courts are not designed to solve this type of a problem, and I know there's some who are of the view that prosecution is the answer, and I don't believe that to be the case at all. This is at the core of the issue. We're dealing with addictions, as was mentioned, mental illness, trauma. I believe what I can bring to the table is getting more investment in the community from the British Columbia Health Authority and from the province, given there's been an obvious influx of a significant number of a transient population here in Campbell River. I have already consulted with experts in addictions and recovery. I have had a leading addictions expert come to Campbell River and observe sort of what some of the issues are. I believe one of the key solutions to this, speaks to the area in which the transient population is located. It doesn't have to be all concentrated in key areas, commercial districts, parks, and there's no shortage of land mass here. So with this funding that I would be proposing of $20 million to Campbell River, that would equip us to provide the supports needed outside of key areas.
Thank you. And candidate Sampson.
Thank you. If I'm elected mayor, the first things I want to implement with the support of council is a program that was adopted in Maple Ridge that's been proved highly successful. It's called the Community Social Safety Action Plan. It comes in 3 parts. The first part is the hiring of community safety officers. Nanaimo has recently adopted this program and hired 12 community safety officers. These safety officers are not enforcement, although they do work with the RCMP, but they are on the roads at 6 o'clock in the morning, working with the homeless, moving them out of the doorways, out of the alcoves, allowing the business owners to get to work, but allowing the customers to come into downtown without that perception of public safety. This also frees up the RCMP. The last time I asked, the RCMP were down 14 staff members. They can't be responding to every call, therefore they prioritize. These community safety officers will be that triage in between that works with the RCMP, but also works with the social services that we have within our community. Maple Ridge has seen unbelievable results as a result of this program. The second part is the location of our services. To have the community kitchen in the middle of the downtown across from Berwick and Comfort Inn is something that we're going to have to look at and read the relocation. I tend to involve stakeholders from Campbellton, downtown, Pierce Street, and Willow Point to look at the relocation of services and to look at where they should be. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Calhoun.
I've studied homelessness in various cities and towns across this country in my travels and came up with some innovative ideas that could be put into action. You got to address the issue on a one-to-one basis, understand the issues and the mental health issues, no more watered-down help, but directly to people. And also, the First Nations is a big majority of the homeless here, but they're from all over the island. Why aren't they looking after their own families since we're supposed to be united? And finally, next week in the Mirror will be a press release about this, and I will address the issue pinpoint blank to what should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with candidate Dahl, and this is a yes or no question. Are you in favor of a long and short-term mental health facility being built in Campbell River?
Yes.
Thank you. Candidate Cabralesi?
Yes.
Candidate Sampson?
Yes.
Candidate Calhoun?
Yes.
Candidate?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy. The number of citizens without a family doctor is growing exponentially. What would you propose for recruitment and retention of new physicians and their families to come and live in Campbell River? Candidate Gebrselassie.
Well, I'm really proud to say I've already started this process, and I have had the privilege of recruiting young medical practitioners, young doctors, to come to Campbell River, and we've had great discussions about the issues here. I'm convinced that I would be very well equipped to do that. I've already started the work, so I want to be able to complete that work and have the opportunity to complete it. And the answer is simple. We need to, we need to reach out to young professionals, young GPs, and my approach with them has been to ask them to pay a visit. And I am convinced that once they see this town, they will want to build a future here. And so you can look on my platform, and I've already started that work.
Candidate Sampson.
Thank you. The young doctors, young professionals, I'll say they look at different things as they move to the city. You look at the older professionals and they would work emerge, they would work beyond call during the day. The new young professionals have more of a lifestyle. So we have to be able to attract them by not only having the proper facilities, but also offering them a lifestyle that they want to come to our community. Saying that, we also have to provide the medical services. And right now we're seeing services in our hospitals, such as pathology, losing certain services to regionalization in Victoria. We're seeing our medical imaging downsize so that sometimes we're having to travel to the Comox Valley to do any medical imaging. So we have to offer the lifestyle, we have to offer the services, and we have to offer the amenities. I talked to one nurse yesterday, long-term mat nurse, and she pointed out daycare. Daycare makes a big difference to families moving here, and was one of the obstacles. So there are a number of steps that we can take to attract the young professionals.
Thank you. Councillor Calhoun. Candidate Calhoun.
This is a complex issue. I think by really spreading our wings and showing people the great resources, the area, and the town we live in. The doctors I've talked to have came here, loved the area, and created a passion for it. It's a very complex issue. We have to also move more people in education, more people into self-help, more people into the medical professions. And let's all take more care of ourselves and don't run to the doctor when we have a problem. Don't get yourself into the situation in the first place. So exercise, good diet, and whatever, and we all should be responsible to minimize the need for health care, not increase it.
Thank you. Candidate Cornfield.
Thank you. The question, I think, was about young doctors.
What would you propose for recruitment and retention of new physicians and their families?
Thank you. The lifestyle that we have here is what they're looking for. We've got everything, all the outdoors. They're young people. They went through university to become doctors. Most of what the problem is here is they have to either buy into a practice or they start a new one. And that means medical records and everything else. So what Quesnel, the city of Quesnel, did was they took a building. They bought a building and they created a medical clinic just for new doctors. They provided the reception staff, they provided the filing until the doctors could get their business up and running and take over. And I think that's an excellent model to do that. We need to also do some changes to the laws because right now we don't recognize practitioners from outside the province. I've got relatives who are very qualified, 30 years plus, but to come from the Yukon into BC, they have to start all over again. And we need to change those laws. So, thank you.
Councillor Dahl.
Well, I agree 100% with Charlie. The city could work with young doctors. When they come out of university, they have huge debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when they come to Campbell River and look at this area, you know, the cost of starting up here are high, and the cost of housing here is high. So it makes it impossible to set up in Campbell River. But if the city could either buy a building or work with a developer to have a building with commercial on the ground floor and possibly lower income senior housing on second, third, fourth, 5th floor. I think that it could be a great partnership, have lower rents to the doctors, and hopefully if we can get something done with our lots and development in Campbell River, we can get the prices to become a little bit more reasonable again, and when doctors come here, they won't be turned off by those two main issues.
Thank you. And the next question, and candidate Sampson, you almost stole my thunder here from your last answer. What role should council play in protecting and restoring Campbell River hospital services, such as restoring the lab to full local capabilities?
Thank you. I think the City of Campbell River, and being mayor and council, should play a strong role. While the Comox-Strathcona Regional Board, Hospital Board oversee the hospitals, they mainly focus on capital expenditures and not on the operational needs of each individual medical facility between the two regional districts. And I liken it to parents when they're dealing with their children at school. If you don't advocate for your own child, if you don't advocate for your own mother or sibling, somebody that's in the hospital, nobody else is going to. So you have to advocate. As a city, as a council, we have to advocate for the medical services in our hospital. We have to be at the table with Island Health, demanding that services not be reduced, that we maintain the existing level of services, and if anything, we should look at increasing the level of services, because this will also attract these doctors that want to come, because they need the services to practice their, whether it's a specialty they have, or whether it's a general practitioner, they need these services. So I believe in strong advocacy to Island Health, and the City of Campbell River should be at the table. One of the things I'd be looking at would be asking a health advisory committee to be formed, and it would regularly update council on the day-to-day operations at the hospital. Right now, the hospital is seeing 140% occupancy. The care that the nurses are trying, the staff are trying, but it's just not enough, and we have to advocate for our hospital.
Candidate Calhoun.
This is a very complex issue. I don't have the information to answer it with any credibility. I will definitely research it and look at the whole situation and then get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Cornfield.
So restoring the facilities. I chair the Regional Hospital District Board. We're restricted by law to funding certain things and not to get into the others. The problem, in my opinion, starts, and I used to sit on the Upper Island Union Board of Health, and people in the audience I know will remember when we had a hospital administrator of our own. We had our own hospital board, and we managed the operations of the hospital itself. That all changed when now it's done through Island Health, VHA, and I agree with candidate Sampson that we need to have a strong presence at the table, and that's quite possible. In terms of the overcapacity issue where we're burning them out, that's why we've pushed hard for the 153-bed long-term care facility, new to be built on the hospital property. That'll take and relieve some of the stresses in the hospital itself by moving people who need different types of care into the proper types of care, not laying in a hallway in the hospital. So, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl.
Well, unfortunately, over the 4 years that I've been on council, I was an alternate to the hospital board, so I didn't get to attend. Candidate Cornfield got to be the chair. But when I did get to attend, it seemed to me that the 5 people from Campbell River's council forgot that they were Campbell River's council first. That's what got them there. They were elected by the community to represent the city and fight for our health care. We had over and over again community groups coming to talk to us about their risk of losing pathology and other services provided by our hospital. but it didn't seem to me like it was taken seriously or even believed some of the time until after the services are gone. So I think that council has a place for sure. They need to remember that once they get the 5 seats on the hospital board, that they're councillors for the city of Campbell River, and they're there to represent the city of Campbell River, whether they're board members or not. Our job is to represent the people that put us there.
Thank you. And candidate Geber Selassie.
So I agree it's a complex issue, and one of the reasons that I would be well equipped to handle that sort of a task is I know how to get files on the right desks at the BC legislature, and I have a lot of experience in politely interrupting decision makers in order to get a variety of files going, projects approved, getting initiatives funded. I have a pretty sort of vast portfolio in doing that. It requires the ability to kind of, cut through really complex files, and that's something that I've had to do as a trial lawyer over many years. I also know how, I think that this really comes down to representation, and you would be getting really good representation with me as your representative in order to be able to lead those types of negotiations that are required to get these types of services. I've also done that in the past as the chief negotiator for Ontario's civil servants group in Ontario, and in that role, I was able to really cut a lot of red tape, and it really comes down to really good representation and good negotiating skills and the ability to navigate bureaucracy.
Thank you. And now this will be the last question of this part of the debate, and then you get to ask each other questions. Candidate Calhoun, reducing car dependency and improving options for different modes of transportation has been proven to have economic, health, environmental, and livability benefits. In light of a growing climate emergency, what specific actions would you support to increase active and alternative transportation in Campbell River, such as increased number of public electric charging stations, e-bike rentals, etc.? What are your ideas?
Well, yes, e-bike rentals, transportation that is rentable is always good. Looking at transit, looking at making, in coordination with the regional district, hubs where people can park their cars and take a bus directly to their work area, saving them gas, time, and money. More incorporation of better trails and pathways for a direct route, and just overall look at what the small things that can be done. The one example I have in Dogwood Street, at 7th Avenue and at Carey High, the lights stop for no reason. Thousands of cars go by there a day and stop and go. What does that cost us for the environment? Thank you.
And candidate Cornfield.
Reducing, the question was reducing car dependency and...
Yes, reducing car dependency. So what ideas do you have around alternative transportation?
Well, I think transit is good. It could be better. We're one of the top, and it would amaze you when we see the ridership numbers that come from our transit system. They're some of the highest in the province in terms of per capita. We need to redo our master transportation plan. It needs to be updated. That's where we plan out all the routes and the trails and the connections, and it's how we move people in through the city. In terms of electrical charging stations, we know we're going to need more. We have put in a number of them already at the community facilities. We need to get more of them located around town. Last week, I rode my first electric scooter at UBCM around Whistler, and I met with the sales manager for the company. They offer a product that can be parked in various parts of the town and then dropped off at the other end at the different locations. And they can also control and regulate all their speeds and everything else to avoid problems between pedestrians and motorized. So there's all kinds of things we can do. It's exciting and wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl.
Well, with the transit, I think that we need to redo our transit routes. We've got neighborhoods that have been in Campbell River for many years that have no transit service at all. Legacy Estates, for example, has been there for 10 years and has no transit through Legacy Estates whatsoever. Same with Forest Grove. There's no transit through there. That's a couple of fairly large, densely populated areas that could use that service. As far as charging stations, I never knew there was even one charging station for e-bikes in Campbell River, but that's good to know. Charging stations for electric cars. I know there's those because my wife drives one. That's how we got here. And for bicycles, we're supposed to be making it a priority anytime we're doing major infrastructure replacement to put bicycle lanes in as part of the replacement. But we always seem to forget about the bicycle lanes until after the project is well underway. They're not planned for during the planning time. They're not budgeted for during the planning time. And then afterwards, we're trying to make a poor situation work. It's like making a bad choice and then trying to figure out how to make it work. And okay.
We had 10 seconds left. That's what that means.
So we need to stick to that. Actually make the bicycle routes part of the planning, and then from start to finish, they're in the project.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Geber Selassie.
I will see to it that the transit reports are updated to include private sector transit providers. We're at risk of losing our sole private sector transit provider, Island Link, and they're a vital transit service here. So it's going to be important that we are working in tandem with a critical service provider like that to keep them operational and here. I would also be implementing, retaining expertise to implement a shuttle system to get shuttles going between the Campbell River Airport and other surrounding airports. And that way reduce reliance on taxi cabs. I'm also a big sort of champion of e-bicycling. You probably have seen me kind of bicycling all around town on a pink bicycle. And it's actually a really great mode of transportation. And I would really like to see the viability of implementing e-bike sharing programs as well as car sharing type services. I would also be keen on seeing to it that we can have sort of improve the bike lane system so that it's more feasible to rely solely on bicycling. And I think that's actually realistic because I've been doing it for a while. So those are my plans.
And candidate Sampson.
Thank you. I think the first thing that I'd be looking at would be the transit system. I think there could be a better, I'll say, cooperation with the school district so that we both have busing systems, that there could be ways to trade off on the different stops so we don't not duplicating our services. Last night at the meeting, the Area C director from Quadra, the people get off the ferry and the bus shows up 50 minutes later. So those people now are driving instead of getting off the ferry and catching a bus. So I think there's a much better ways that we can work with our transit system to improve it. The putting in bike lanes should be, I agree with candidate Dahl, should be part of the infrastructure upgrade. We're going to be doing Erickson Road fairly soon with a new water line. Definitely, it should incorporate safe walking and bicycling, and that money comes out of the federal gas tax. The thing that we have to be aware of is the e-bikes are becoming more and more prominent, that as we build the infrastructures and build the bicycle lanes, that we have to take, say, precautions or extra ways to ensure the safety as these e-bikes are getting faster and faster to protect both the pedestrians, but also the traffic and the people on the e-bikes. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we've moved into the second part of the evening where each of you get to ask a question of another candidate of your choosing. Candidate Cornfield, what is your question and who is it for?
I haven't had time to think of it.
You were supposed to come armed with questions.
Well,
So what's off the top of your, what can you think about?
well,
What's a pressing issue that you really want an answer for?
it's okay. I'll be fine. I respect everybody that's here. I have heard good comments, some that I don't think were that well informed. I didn't come prepared to grill or question another candidate. My
not grill.
my understanding of the letter that was sent out was that we had the opportunity to ask a question should we want to, not that we were to ask a question. And I'm sorry, but I respect everyone in this panel up here. Where did Michael go? Michael, you ran around.
It wasn't about grilling. It was about asking a question that maybe hadn't been asked yet of a particular candidate so that you
That
could
was
get...
not
so
was not clear in
Yes,
your
it
memo.
was.
I'll agree to disagree. I guess if I have to ask one, it would be... Well, if someone tells you there's a solution to homelessness that's an easy fix and can be done tomorrow, I would say no. So I would like that one to be explained by people that have come up and said, good, we're going to do something about it. So any candidate.
I'll take a shot.
Okay.
I agree with Councillor Candidate Cornfield. You're not going to solve this, but I think the people of the city are frustrated. I think they're angry, and I think they want to see something done. And sometimes too often we say, well, it's provincial responsibility, it's a federal responsibility. And I think the citizens, the residents are saying, no, we have to take some sort of ownership and start to deal with the problem. What I proposed in this model that's based on the Maple Ridge safety initiatives is not going to solve the problem, but it will start making steps to make a difference. And I think that's the thing that the residents, the citizens, they want to see. They want to see somebody to start to take ownership and to make a difference. And if the province isn't going to step up, then we can't just sit back and do nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl, what is your question and who is it for?
I didn't bring any questions either.
Okay. So see, nobody reads the emails I send out. This is proof right here. So candidate Geber Selassie, do you have a question and who would it be for?
Yes, I would like to pose a question to Charlie Cornfield. I really appreciate all of the great work that you've done here, and you clearly have a very long and varied public service. You've led a life of service. So I'd like to thank you for that. And I would like to know what your experience has been on the campaign trail this election season, and And what has stuck out to you the most from what you've been told campaigning?
Go ahead, candidate Cornfield.
I started tonight. The campaign, when do we have to file our papers? Just a week before, just before we left for Whistler. And it has been a rushed campaign. I stay in touch with people a lot in terms of finding out what the issues are and what they consider is most important. So the campaign trail has been what it is every year or every election cycle. It's keeping in touch with the people, finding out what the issues are, and trying to do the best we can to fix it. So, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
I appreciate the candor. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sampson, do you have a question?
I did read the email, but my question is quite long, so I'm going to shorten it up in respect to the other candidates. During the last, and this is to candidate Dahl, during the last budget process, city taxes increased about 3.16%, I think it was, down from the recommended of 3.6%. Monies were taken from the reserves to bring the tax increase down to 3.16. We know that the RCMP contract came in higher than staff and council anticipated. We know that we're taking money out of the reserves to balance the budget. We're seeing a downturn in our real estate and in our development. And yet, now we've been told, I thought originally it was 6 to 9, but now hearing tonight a 10 to 12% increase. What efficiencies, can you name 3 specific efficiencies that you'll be looking at to bring down the tax of the 10 to 12% that you forecasted for next year?
I don't know how much we can bring down the tax increase that's coming for next year because of the way council has worked for the past, I don't know, ever maybe. We used COVID recovery money, part of the $4 million that the federal government gave us, to reduce the tax increase to the taxpayers of Campbell River last year. We felt that that was a good use of the money that was given to us by the federal government. It's our money coming back to us, so why not share it with our taxpayers? We froze about $2 million-ish, I think, that can be used this year. As far as tax increases going, if we would start doing our tax budgeting plan in January instead of starting in November, we could bring together planning and development and talk about how many lots we need to subdivide for the year, how many development permits we need to issue for the year to generate X number of dollars. And by the time we get to November, the planning and development department will have generated enough tax revenue to have covered off the tax increases that we've been generally doing year over year. While I've been on council, the best we've done is $700,000 in new taxes collected year over year. $700,000. I was in Langford 2 weeks ago seeing my daughter. She's a school teacher there. She won't move back here because the cost of housing is too expensive. But I met with the council there and talked to one of them and asked, what's your new market change for 2022? $19 million. That's what development does, and that's what stops tax increases.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Sure. Thank you. You brought up Langford. Langford, fastest growing municipality in the province. I think it grows on the average of 6% a year. Campbell River grows about 1.25% a year. Langford's seeing just under a 3% tax increase this year, 2.95. Next year, Langford is seeing just under a 6% tax increase at 5.8, I believe. Year after, Langford's seeing another tax increase of just under 6. The following year, 2025, is seeing a tax increase of 7. So even though it grows at 4 times the rate of Campbell River, it's still seeing significant tax increases. How do you see this playing out in the next 4 years if you're elected mayor?
I'm not sure where you're getting your numbers from, but I sat down with their mayor, and this year they could reduce their taxes to their residential and commercial taxpayers by 10% if they would quit building more infrastructure, ball fields, hockey rinks, stadiums, all of the things that their families enjoy. So there was no talk about any increase for this year, next year, or the year after, because they're generating the money from development.
Okay. Candidate Calhoun, do you have a question? And who would you like to ask it of?
Well, yes, I guess I do. Gabriel. I'm so sorry, I don't know her last name very well.
Candidate Gebrselassie.
Okay. Anyway, on homeless, how many homeless do you know, and are you going to talk to them individually to solve the problem?
Thank you for that question. I really appreciate that. With great respect to my worthy opponent, Charlie, I've actually been campaigning 7 days a week for half a year here, talking to constituents. I don't take a single voter for granted, a single community member, for granted, and I've really taken the time to speak with as many people as possible, given the seriousness of the situation that we're facing here. I do campaign extensively as well within the precarious population, homeless population, those who are battling addictions, trauma, and have learned a lot. And I don't just campaign, and when I speak with them, I get their expertise, their intelligence. And a lot of them are from, have diverse backgrounds, and you would be surprised actually with their stories and how some of them have experienced success. So a number of volunteers on my campaign were previously homeless or battling addictions, and today are quite successful. So that's something that I think we should all remember, is that they can be successful in the region.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, but people have concerns. But what about these homeless? These are the ones we have to address. What about talking with these homeless people and seeing what can be done?
So speaking with the homeless population, so I'll just give a story very quickly. So there's two examples I have of persons that are homeless, that were homeless here and today are thriving. One is actually in the process of building a healing lodge. Another one has a thriving sort of counseling practice and is today an entrepreneur and has a private enterprise. So what I've learned from that is that we have to truly believe in human potential and not limit their human potential. And we can, there's no rivalry here between the homeless population and residents. We can actually, we can both be successful. We can all succeed together if we give, if we provide the support systems that are required, but then also ensure that it's not, disrupting business or disrupting the overall safety and quality of life in the region.
Thank you. And now we are back to you, Candidate Cornfield. Is there a question now that you would like to ask someone?
Oh, yeah. So it's through to Councillor Sampson. He made some comments about money coming from reserves and money to reduce the taxes coming out of reserves. And so can you identify which reserves were used for which?
Not without looking at the financial plan, but I would assume it would come out of the financial stabilization reserves.
So am I allowed to respond now?
Yes, you are.
So when the money knowing full well that the RCMP contract was being negotiated, we set aside money in reserve to pay down because we knew we were going to get hit with a bill. We set the money aside. That was one of the expenditures out of the reserves, which we did not anticipate such a large impact, but we had that money set aside, and that's what was used. The money used to reduce the taxes came from a reallocation of the downtown property tax exemption, which, instead of being returned to the taxpayers, that's the one where the property owners that build are giving an exemption for 5 years and they don't have to pay on their improvements. Well, somebody has to pay, and that's all you taxpayers out there, myself included, has to cover that shortfall of what we would have got from taxes. Instead, it was being put into a reserve. For what? For projects we might or might not do in the future? That's where that money came from. Council made the decision. I moved the motion. I believe it was candidate Dahl that seconded it, that downtown property tax exemption should be given back to all the people. And that's why we reduced it.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Was that a question?
I think that was a rebuttal.
Oh, I see.
I do have a question, and that is, there's been a lot of talk from various candidates about how to solve problems. And I'm just wondering where the money is going to come from to do that.
Who would you like to direct that to?
I'm going to direct it to the one I don't know.
Oh, candidate Geber Selassie. Where's the money going to come from?
In my plan, I indicated that I would be petitioning the province to provide $20 million in funding to this region, given the fact that this place has become very attractive for large segments of a high needs population, and that the town is not equipped to deal with this kind of a mass influx. So that's one area where where I propose to bring more money into the municipality. I also have indicated that I've sort of brought in innovators in the tech sector to come to Campbell River and visit it, and very talented professionals that have come here, particularly young professionals who are innovative, who have great ideas. I wish you could meet some of these entrepreneurs and innovators. You would truly be blown away with the talent that is housed amongst some of our Canadian professionals in and outside of the province of British Columbia.
Do I get it?
The province, British Columbia Health Authority, and negotiations with the provincial government. There is funding that is available, so it has to be applied for, and that's what you would be electing me to do, is to bring those monies into the municipality.
Okay. All right. So candidate Dahl, you now get to ask a question of any candidate. Do you have a question, and who would it be for?
I'll ask candidate Larry Sampson what he would do with the drug and addiction problem in our downtown.
Candidate Sampson, you have 90 seconds.
As we talked about before, I looked at the Maple Ridge program, and it's been hugely successful in dealing with the mental health and addiction that we see in the downtown. The community safety officers I talked about, so that's just the first part. The next part is what we call the center, or as Maple Ridge refers to it as the hub, is that it is a center place that the people with addictions, mental health, homelessness, whatever their complex problems are, can go and receive the support, whether it be housing, whether it be medical needs, whether it be social services, to deal with the issues that are making it more of a complex care issue. That's when I mentioned the stakeholders from Campbellton, the stakeholders from downtown, Pierce Street, and Willow Point have to be involved in the location of this hub. Right now, we're seeing the Rose Bowl, we're seeing the mental health and addiction, I call it kitty corner to the fire hall, or right beside Home Hardware, and we're seeing the community kitchen, and it's just a vicious circle going around and around. And you can't push them out without having a central hub that they can go and receive the support that they need. It's just the first step.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Not a question, well, yeah, it's a question, I guess. Where's the money coming from?
The money for the community safety officers, as indicated, the RCMP are down 14 staff members. So if they're down 14 staff members, whether it's long-term illness, whether it's maternity, paternity, whether they've been transferred and we haven't been able to replace it, that money comes back to the city. The federal pays it back to the city. So if we looked at, I think I read the last time that they're putting a constable at $200,000, and we're down 14 members, we're going to get money back from the city. My intent would be to use that money to start implementing this program with the community safety officers, as we've seen they're doing in Nanaimo and Saanich. As our RCMP are able to fulfill their quota of 14 members, which brings us to a total of 45 members, then that reliance on the RCMP budget will be gradually reduced as they meet their full manpower complement.
But this deals with the results of the drug addiction, not with the addiction itself.
And I think if you remember, that's why I answered yes to when I was asked if there are mental health addiction complex here in Campbell River.
Okay. Candidate Geber Selassie, do you have a question, and who would it be for?
Yes, I will direct this to Charlie once for a second round, if you will.
Go ahead.
Why is it that you say that you don't really have new ideas? Is it because you feel that things have always been done in a particular way, and so the tried and true formula is the way to go? I'm genuinely really curious.
Okay, I never stated that I didn't have new ideas. I'm open to all ideas. There are out-of-the-box ways. It's just like with the housing. We have the ability to buy land, become a developer ourselves as a city, to subsidize the housing ourselves. That's out of the box. It hasn't been done before. So it's not that I have no new ideas, but as a mayor, the idea is to put together 6 disparate people or from all aspects of the community, to pull them together and to come up with solutions. It's about, as a mayor, you bring other people in to bring the ideas and you listen. And together you come up with strategies and solutions. It isn't necessarily all about what I do.
Do you have a follow-up question? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to my colleagues.
Okay. Candidate Sampson, do you have a question? Who's it for?
This is for candidate Cornfield in response to the budget. In the report April of this year, it was identified, and I think the report got into the headlines as big rocks ahead or something like that. It was identified that we were going down a path that was not sustainable as far as tax increases. In fact, Candidate Dahl pointed out tonight that we're looking at a 10 to 12% increase. So my question then would be was there money taken out of the reserves, any reserves, to balance the budget this year?
Candidate Cornfield.
Not that I'm aware of, not for a stated purpose that wasn't for what the reserves were put aside for. We did not consciously go into reserves and reduce the budget. No.
Do you have a follow-up question?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Can I have a follow-up? So,
You can, hang on a sec. So Candidate Calhoun, do you have a question for anybody else right now?
Yes, I'll have a question to Kermit Dalwall. What would you do to solve the affordable housing issue?
Candidate Dahl, what would you do to solve the affordable housing issue?
Whoa. I'd probably move to Langford. Since we've been on council for the last 4 years, we've created 85 low-income housing units. And, we will continue to try to develop more low-income housing units in, partnership with BC Housing. And hopefully we'll be able to build some other partnerships to build more low-income housing. This is an extremely difficult situation. Like I said, people are looking for us to find housing for homeless that are coming from all over Canada. As I already stated, we developed 85. There was 108 or 118. That should leave, a handful, 20 people looking for housing, but it doesn't. It leaves us with more people looking for housing because they continue to come here. We just sat through a report to council where it was told to us that 74% of the people in our downtown have been here for a year. That leaves 26% that haven't been here for a year. That's 1 in 4. We need to figure that out because we cannot continue. We will never solve homelessness if we're trying to fill the need for every community on the island and as far away as Thunder Bay, Ontario. And if you talk to the RCMP, the fire department, or emergency health services, they'll all tell you that the migration is happening here. And that's what we need to deal with before we'll ever get to deal with the housing problem.
Thank you. So we are drawing to a close of the evening, and what we're going to do now is you have 1 minute and 30 seconds for your closing statements. And Candidate Cornfield, you're up next.
okay. So when I was mayor, people used to say I was a mayor for the people. And I recognize the fact that I'm of the older generation. However, I'm not set in my ways. I am open-minded and willing to listen. I had an open door policy when I was mayor. I'll have an open door policy again. COVID changed our world. It changed our city. It changed us and how we lived and how we interacted with other people. As we come out of COVID, we need confident leadership and experience to bring the community together to deal with the challenges that we're facing tonight and today and over the next 4 years. We have challenges with the downtown, challenges on housing attainability, inflation, and nobody mentioned climate change tonight. We need understanding and compassion to bring stability and safety back to our city. I don't have all the answers, but I know that if we all work together, there isn't much that we can't accomplish. Change is the only constant, and I support positive change. Not afraid of the future, I embrace it. We cannot stop growth. What we need to do is manage the growth and promote development in the right locations. We need to ensure that economic, environment, and social values reflect our community. I've got things done in the past. I want to get more done in the future. And this is about what we leave for generations to come. So help me to make our city the best it can be, and vote for Charlie Cornfield.
Thank you. Candidate Dahl?
I purposely didn't make a closing statement or write one up. I wanted to talk about what we've got coming towards us, and that will be continuously large tax increases if we don't start to deal with the issues in front of us. We have about a 2.26% growth rate in people that are 15 to 64 and a 34% growth rate in people over 65. That means that there's a lot of people moving here that are going to be putting pressures on our medical systems and services around here, but we have nobody moving here to supply those services. And if we don't get our housing crisis in order, we won't have anybody between 20 and 45 living here to provide services to the seniors that are moving to our community. And that is happening because our housing rates, our prices, are out of line with many other successful communities in BC. When we get that straightened out, we'll be able to attract professionals, doctors, nurses, and LPNs, RNs, all of the things that we're going to need. But if we don't get our housing crisis in order, we won't be able to attract anyone, and our taxes will skyrocket out of sight. This isn't about, I read a comment on one of my posts this week that as far as the eye could see. It's not about as far as the eye could see, it's sustainable growth. As candidate Sampson said, 1.25. Actually, the numbers I've been using, it's probably around 1.4% per year, where most communities are at 4% per year. And at 4%, we can generate enough new revenue to have twice what we're getting from the tax increases, which means we can upgrade infrastructure and provide bike lanes and parks and baseball fields and not have to displace our kids and make them go to different parks that are further out of the way, or push complete sports out of Campbell River.
Thank you. Candidate Geber Selassie.
I have some sobering thoughts and some hopefully inspiring observations to offer today. I believe that this is a critical juncture. I have made very clear how concerned I am and all of us are with unaffordability, extreme inflation, extreme labor shortages, supply chain disruption. This is a really, really, really serious election, and this is a plea to the public. The majority of the citizens here are not voting, and my plea to the public is for your participation. I believe in participatory democracy. I am calling on the community to join my campaign, to look at the platform, and it is a living platform, meaning I'm relying on your participation, on your contribution to add your intelligence and expertise so that the platform can be a true reflection of the community's wishes, ideas, and proposals. I am really excited for the future. I believe this city is the most enchanting city in the country, and that's why I'm so grateful to be here. And by electing me, I can assure you, you are getting good and sound representation.
Thank you. Candidate Sampson.
Thank you. Municipal elections are about the future of our community. If I'm elected as your mayor, I look forward to working with the council with a diversity that bring their individual strong passions to our council table. When we have diversity of gender, ethnicity, ages, and abilities at municipal council, we create a more inclusive and sustainable community. When we have a council that represents the different aspects of a city, whether it be the environment, our business community, the arts, the sports, healthy lifestyle, our retirement community, and development with sustainable growth, we are a better city. A lack of diversity means many voices are excluded from the decision-making process. This puts municipalities at risk. Large portions of our populations may feel underrepresented or ignored, and council may miss out on important views. Vigorous debate about the future of our community is important, whether during an election or around the council chambers or table. It is important to remember that even if people have different options and experiences, everyone shares the goal of a better community. As your mayor, my past record shows that I have the skills to bring a diverse team together. I can utilize individual strength to promote a strong community work environment with open and respectful communication. On October 15th, vote for a mayor and council that represents all the residents of our city.
Candidate Calhoun, your closing statement, please.
Well, I haven't prepared one before, but I would say listen to the people more and get more public input. Homeless, move them to where? You know, except for the downtown core. Elect the people who have experience in these issues, not call in another expert to explain it to them. As the man said, she knew this very smart woman, and she baked a mouth-watering apple pie, but she didn't know how to build a road. Why was she highway minister? So anyway, there's a lot of issues, but what I say to you is everyone running for mayor and council, pound on them. Don't get, well, we're going to fix this. Get how you're going to fix it and what's going to be done. Because everyone can talk out of the side of the mouth. I hopefully, in the next few days, will be bringing some of the concrete proposals to the table that you can share with me or other candidates to get the problem solved. This is why I'm here, is to help with my years of experience and expertise in energy conservation, construction, zoning, the tourism industry, fishing, logging, and I'm a free mining prospector, to help get things solved, not just another blah, blah, blah. Thank you, everybody, for your support, and let's make this town great again.
Thank you. Thank you. We have enough time for one more question, but it's a one-word answer. And we'll start with candidate Dahl. If you are elected mayor, what is going to be your first priority?
One-word answer.
Well, maybe 10 words, but just a short answer, just not 90 seconds. I don't have that much time. First priority.
First priority is going to be the drug and alcohol problem in our downtown.
Okay. Candidate Gabrielesi.
On day one of being elected to the mayor's office, I will declare Campbell River open for business.
Candidate Sampson.
My first order of business will be to convince council to implement the community social safety action plan based on the Maple Ridge model.
Candidate Calhoun.
To solve the issue of the homeless here and to eliminate the use of all sharpened carts and give them better forms of transportation. And then we take it from there to build up this great town into something that it has been in the past.
And candidate Cornfield.
The number one problem, in my opinion, is the downtown area and dealing with that issue. And that would be the first item on the agenda for council.
All right. Thank you, all of you, for letting your names stand and for having the courage to be such a personal example of democracy in action. And thank you to the amazing audience that is all gathered behind me and to all of you out there watching. My name is Mary Ruth Snyder. I'm the Executive Director of the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank our co-hosts, the Campbell River Mayor and the Tidemark Theatre Society, and the amazing technical staff that pulled all this together. Thank you for watching. See you in the voting booth.
You all can-